So this season's natural color baking, I wanted to do something completely different around June or July, incorporating the berries of the season, or maybe even peaches. I was leaning towards berries because it's one of the things you look forward to in the summer, even if summer's not your thing. Just the fresh strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, all of that, and fresh picking at local farms, and just that's one of the best things about summer. But I just had too much going on in July, so I ended up having to wait until after I did a craft show in early August, and so now I didn't want to do the same thing because berry season is over. So long story short, I am doing a bread based on August, how August is harvest time. It's the best month to go to the farmer's market and pick up lots of really delicious things that are growing. It's like the peak season of that preserving time for canning and doing all that kind of stuff when you have a garden. So I thought, why not make August garden related focaccia bread with natural colors? So first of all, I showed you in the beginning my little garden beds and picking the vegetables that I needed, and then I'm going to be using some dried spices and as colors as well. So this is going to be starting the dough part, and I just use the same basic dough for my breads and for pizza, as a matter of fact. So I do a whole packet of just regular yeast, the active dry yeast. And then I have some local honey, and it's supposed to be 2 teaspoons, but I kind of just eyeball it because it's pretty easy to squirt it and see if it looks like a teaspoon. So there we go. And then it is 2 cups of warm water. Not hot, not cold, just right in between. And then next, I just let this hang out for a while because, I mean, it's not necessary to do this with the honey and the yeast, the active dry yeast. If it's fresh, it doesn't need this stage of it. It's normally called proofing, but I like to do it anyway just because the honey adds something to it and it makes the yeast really, really happy first. That's why I let it sit and hang out, so that it can feed on all that honey and get all like bubbly and happy and ready to go for the next stage. Okay, so I let it hang out for 15 minutes because it's warm in my house and sunny out. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's very foamy and happy. So next, we'll add the last 2 ingredients, which is just salt and flour. Now, granted, you can use bread flour and it makes it, just only slightly better, but good organic, unbleached, all-purpose flour works just good too. So this is my flour in my pretty glass jar here. And I just scoop it in. So there'll be 4.5 cups of flour. I always put the flour in first and then the salt on top of it. I don't know why. I think just because I used to have this beautiful bread book and it said to do that, and I trusted, of course. And then when I use my bread machine, it says the same thing, that you don't ever want the salt touching the yeast directly. because it can kind of deflate your yeast. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but I go by what that book said. It's a beautiful artisan bread book. Three. Four. And then just a half. Okay. And I have salt, 2 teaspoons. A little too much. There. 2 teaspoons. So now the dough is mixed, the basic mix. It's still very sticky. So I'm just going to work a little bit of flour and use my hands, clean hands, to kind of get it a little less sticky to work with and to separate it. So let's just get some flour on our surface here. But for now, I just need to be able to basically separate it. So I'm gonna do a little more than half. It's just gonna stay the way it is. So we'll put that back in the bowl. And then we are gonna start working with this one. We're going to separate it into 3. That's good. So 3 little balls, and then the other half. And I'm going to wash my hands and start getting out the colors that these are going to be. Okay, so the first color, we put one of the little dough balls in there, and we're going to try some turmeric. So I have probably more than I need, but I've never done this before, so I'm just going to start small till I get to the color that I like. So that looks good. It's not incorporated all the way in, but mostly. So I'm going to do that for all 3. and then kind of work it in more by kneading it. But it would be cool to have it have this kind of mottled effect and make it look more like what I'm going to be making with them. So I'm going to do the next one same with turmeric, and then another one with paprika. This is good Hungarian paprika. The best paprika, I think, in the whole world comes from Hungary, in particular the Kaloska region. Another dream place to go. We're at harvest time just about now. They would hang the peppers that make them all over the buildings and houses, and it's just amazing. I can't imagine what that looks like in person. I've only seen it in pictures. Now, so if I had have a dough hook, it would have probably gone in easier, but I don't. So even with the dough hook, I still think I'm going to have to work these spices in by hand, but that's okay. So we'll get to that part. Okay, so I kneaded these in, and I hope you can see what an absolutely beautiful color the paprika is, the paprika dough. And the turmeric too is also really, really pretty. I've got a couple of different shades, and I already was experimenting with one of the things that's going to be on the bread. I wanted that to look like a sunflower or maybe some kind of black-eyed Susan daisy. So we're going to, while my hands are still orange, I'm going to make all of the gold and orange pieces that will go on the bread. So first I've got one piece kind of a little bit flatter because things are going to rise. After you assemble the bread, it's going to rise for a while. So what I've found with pumpkins when I was making the incense burners is that the best thing that ever to use for making a ridge, like the ridges on the pumpkins, is a butter knife, because a butter knife has a very mild, I probably can't get it to show, but just a very tiny texture to it. And then all you do is touch. Just touch your dough, press down a bit, but not too hard. You can touch them up later before you put it in the oven, but that makes the most amazing lines on it for the pumpkins. So I'm going to make a few gold ones, and then of course a few orange, and the stems and the leaves are going to be the basil that we harvested. So kind of the same thing. You want it three-dimensional somewhat. It's going to rise and puff, so think of that when you're making it. So that's about right. And again, just touch the butter knife to it. They don't have to be perfect. Just makes it look so much more real. Maybe we'll make 2 skinny pumpkins. Pumpkins always come in different shapes, of course. And the last is going to be another flower. I can show you how I did that. So I take off about that size, and it just like that. That's when you just start building. Hey, so I kind of experimented around with the peppers. I didn't like a couple of things I had tried, so this one I just halved it and hollowed out all the seeds and kept the stems on. So there's 2 halves of that pepper, and then the same of these beautiful little red ones. I tried to keep their stem on, just to go with the whole harvest thing. I tried to make flowers out of cutting the peppers into pieces, and I just didn't like that. And then here's the main body of our dough, and I've kneaded it and gotten it ready. I did not roll it with a rolling pin because you kind of don't need to do that. You just kind of work with it of spreading it out. Let's see if I can slide our pieces out of the way. You just kind of stretch and pull. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. That's the beauty of focaccia bread. It's just pretty the way it is. Just kind of work it and shape it. Press it and stretch it out. So we're going to take our first pumpkin. Actually, let's do it this way because there's already some orange on that side. And we're just going to kind of, before we attach, we're just going to figure out how we want things. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so I was kind of trying to figure out where I should start the line of green. So I'm going to be adding some ground rosemary. That will be like the grass, the ground. Should be enough there. Kind of smooth and shake it into place. Press it down just a little bit. Oh, rosemary smells so good. And rosemary in bread is just a wonderful thing. All right, so that looks good there. And now we can start to really map out our pumpkins. So we have 3 orange, so I'm going to put 1 in the middle. That's the oven ready. Put 1 over here. And don't worry about the ridges that you've done. We can touch them up once we get everything in place. Put one of the gold guys here. And another gold guy there. Some of the peppers. Down low enough so you can see the stems, because I wanted that part to show. That's why I left them on. Some more. That pepper. And our flowers. Actually, you know what? Sometimes you gotta play around a little bit, right? There. Okay, I'm liking that. So then, maybe one last pumpkin down here. Okay, so now we're going to start working with the basil. I have my cup full of fragrant basil from the garden. And I thought it would be perfect to cut and make stems for the pumpkins. And one more. And just poke it into the dough. And then try to get the leaves to stick to the dough as well. So this looks really pretty. And then you can just pick around and add leaves too. Just, you know, because it makes them look so much cuter just to add. Because that's what I think about when I think about the August and harvest time, the end of summer. I think of greens, reds, and golds. It like prepares you for the fall colors because tomatoes get ready and cucumbers, peppers, all of these things that are all those colors, pumpkins, squash. Just kind of want to symmetrically put out some leaves to make it prettier. The little leaves are really cute. Make sure that all the stems show. And then of course you can touch up your flower petals by tweaking them and then add your ridges back into the pumpkins before you bake it. I have my oven preheated to 375 and I'm not really sure at this point how long it will take, so I'll let you know after it's baked of how long it takes. And you also want to drizzle this with some olive oil, just a little bit, shine things up, and just a very light drizzling, and salt if you want to as well. And so this here is me taking it out and cutting it and enjoying it. It was so fragrant and it just tasted actually really good. The paprika, even the turmeric, the rosemary, the roasted peppers, the basil, just so good. This is a nice bread to have with soup or with a nice garden salad. I'll show you here what it looks like inside when it's cut. Bread was really fluffy. I didn't actually time how long it took. I'm guessing around like 20 minutes, but every oven is different. Just constantly check on it, and when it feels kind of firm to the touch but still feels fluffy, it's done. So here's inside the paprika pumpkin, and take a bite. So thank you so much for watching. There'll be another video for natural color baking in November. Take care.